Welcome to the Rise Up for Abortion Rights emergency webinar on the Mifepristone ruling. If you're outraged, if you're scared, if you are just downright confused about what is going on right now, you are in the right place. I'm Sam Goldman. I host the Refuse Fascism podcast, and I'm so glad to be a part of the Rise Up for Abortion Rights team. I am honored to be with you tonight. We are going to get started. And I just want to remind folks about why we're here and what we're talking about tonight. On Friday, there was a major ruling from a Trump-appointed Christian Fascist judge in Texas who ordered the FDA to withdraw its approval for Mifepristone, an abortion medication used in approximately 53% of all abortions in this country. Tonight, we're going to talk about what this means, where this is headed, and why only the people standing up and fighting back can reverse this increasingly dangerous direction. The heart of our webinar tonight will be presentations from Merle Hoffman and Sunsara Taylor, two of the co-initiators of Rise Up for Abortion Rights. We launched last January after the Dobbs hearing, where it was clear Roe was on the chopping block and there was no movement to stop this atrocity. We launched with the mission to stop the Supreme Court from decimating abortion rights through a growing movement of mass, sustained, nonviolent protests, taking inspiration from the Green Wave in Latin America. And while we did not succeed in preventing the overturn of Roe, we involved tens of thousands, including thousands of students who participated in walkouts. We were joined by women with ties to Latin America who brought the experience and defiance of the Green Wave into the streets of the US, artists, prominent voices of conscience, and so many others. Together, we planted a fighting pole that rejected the enslavement of half of humanity by the state. And we continue to make clear that the illegitimacy of a court ruling that unleashed the state to enforce this on women. So now it's the time to take this fight forward, to reverse the political momentum in this country, and to win legal abortion on demand and without apology nationwide and everywhere. So what does tonight look like? First, you're going to see a short video of some of the rapid response actions that took place Saturday, some I think even Friday night, and hear from Chantelle Piper, one of our national organizers, about actions this Friday and Saturday. Then you'll hear presentations from Merle Hoffman and Sunsara Taylor on the significance of this ruling and how to understand it and respond. And then how to get organized for Friday and Saturday. Chantelle will come back on. We'll then hear from Patricia, another organizer with Rise Up, who's going to share a personal story. And then we'll be taking your questions. Again, to submit your questions, you're going to click the Q&A box at the bottom. With that, I want to welcome you again. So glad that you're with us. I am going to pass it over to Chantelle so that you can take a look at some of what Rise Up took to the streets with immediately after the ruling and where we're going next. Welcome, Chantelle.
Thank you, Sam. Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Chantelle, a national organizer with Rise Up for Abortion Rights. You know me through the emails, through the text messages, through the social media. I'm excited to be here with all of you today. So we have a 2.5-minute newsreel of like this amazing emergency response actions that cities did across the country. And some people actually organized for the first time these actions. So I wanted to go ahead and share my screen, share my sound, okay, and play that for you. Then I'm going to be reading our call to act for this weekend.
A new front has opened in the nation's ongoing battle over abortion rights. A federal judge issued a ruling that would halt the use of the commonly used abortion pill nationwide. The decision came down late on a Friday of a holiday weekend, but the reaction today was swift, with protests across the country.
Live in Washington Square Park with the very latest on this battle playing out in the courts. Melissa?
That rally is underway.
They are with Rise Up for Abortion Rights that stood on the corner of Montrose and Lovett with signs, we know, to oppose the ruling of a federal judge in Texas.
We're here today to make sure that women still have the right to choose to govern their bodies the way that they see fit.
Some in Boston are rallying for women's access to the pill.
Hoy decenas de personas llegaron a la Plaza Federal para mostrar su descontento contra el fallo judicial para una pastilla anticonceptiva que lleva en el mercado. Escuchen esto.
Protesters hit the streets in downtown Chicago to voice their concerns over this new ruling.
In downtown LA, a small group showed up to voice their disapproval. In 2020, more than half of abortions in the U.S. were done by medication.
Abortion on demand without apology! Without apology!
They chanted their message.
This is going to affect all women in this country.
The group Rise Up for Abortion Rights rallied outside of the federal courthouse in downtown LA.
For anyone who has a heart and who has any inkling of humanity, this should not be normalized. This should outrage you.
The group was part of a nationwide protest Saturday, wanting to fight the recent ruling.
Hands off the abortion pill!
Protesters said it was vital they took to the streets immediately to share how the ruling could impact women's reproductive rights in every state.
And so this is going to impact already flooded Los Angeles, California clinics, because there's all these women from all over the country who have to travel because their state abortion is banned.
Our outrage needs to be unleashed in the streets. When women are enslaved and don't have control over their lives and their futures, no one is free. Overturning of Roe versus Wade was only the beginning, and we're seeing that happen right before our eyes. They're going for abortion pills. They're going for birth control. They're going after LGBTQ people.
This is an assault on the humanity of women. This is an assault on basic reproductive rights. It's also an assault on democracy.
Now, abortion rights advocates tell me that even with a competing ruling by a federal judge here in Washington state, they're not sure what will happen next.
We need to rise up for abortion rights now. Okay. So again, that was just a taste of all the footage that actually was taken across the country. In some cities, we're still rolling in because yesterday, Bay Area actually took to the streets and also got covered. So I want to give a shout out to those who mobilized yesterday too. Okay, next I want to read our call to act for this weekend. Nationwide protest Saturday, April 15th to say hands off abortion medication. Women need legal abortion on demand and without apology to be free. On April 7th, Trump-appointed federal judge Matthew Kacsmaryk ordered the FDA to withdraw its approval of Mifepristone, a medication that is safer than Tylenol and used in more than 50% of abortions in this country. This order is scheduled to go into effect April 14th. Kacsmaryk's ruling was saturated with the language of a Handmaid's Tale theocracy, equating abortion to the killing of children and resurrecting the 1873 Comstock Act, an arcane chastity ban that could lay the basis for criminalizing abortion nationwide. While it is possible that this decision will be stayed or delayed, no one should sit back and wait and see how the powers that be will respond. Biden promises to fight this ruling in the courts, but the highest court, the Supreme Court, is packed with fascists who ripped away the constitutional right to abortion last year. Biden says the only way to stop those who are committed to taking away women's rights and freedoms in every state is to elect a Congress who will pass a law restoring Roe versus Wade. But the Democrats have had 50 years to codify abortion rights, and they never did. On top of that, the fascist Republicans attempted a coup on January 6, 2021. They illegitimately expelled Black state representatives in Tennessee this week in response to Trump's recent arrest. Tucker Carlson said, "It's not the time to give up your AR-15s." Counting on these fascists to respect a meaningful election they lose is delusional. We must rely on ourselves. Now is the time to raise your voice in opposition, take to the streets, disrupt business as usual, mobilize the one force that can compel those in power to back off their assault on abortion rights. The masses of people standing up in our hundreds and soon be thousands and then millions. We refuse to submit to female enslavement through forced motherhood. Legal abortion on demand and without apology. Rise up for abortion rights. So acting this weekend, Friday, April 14th, sound the alarm, disrupt business as usual, walk out of school, die in at the cafeterias, speak out at federal courthouses, and raise the green bandana of abortion rights popularized by the courageous women in Latin America. And on Saturday, April 15th, protest with these demands. Hands off medication abortion. Legal abortion on demand and without apology nationwide and everywhere. Forced motherhood equals female enslavement. Rise up for abortion rights.
Thank you, Chantelle, for sharing that. And I put in a link to where you can see that statement yourself and share that statement. Chantelle's going to come back on a little later to talk about how to organize actions near you and a little bit more about Friday and Saturday in a little bit. But first, we need to get into the significance of this ruling, how to understand it, and respond to it. To do so, I am happy to introduce Merle Hoffman. Merle is founder, president, and CEO of Choices Women's Medical Center in Queens, New York, and she is a co-initiator of Rise Up for Abortion Rights. Welcome, Merle.
Hello. Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm so glad you can be with us for our continual rising, because that is who we are and that is what we do. And there is quite a bit of confusion about this ruling and what they're calling dueling decisions, and when it would go into effect and could it go into effect. But I consider this almost like the fog of war, you see, because war is what we are in now, and I consider this a total war. And the fog gets reinforced by the lies and the propaganda, so many lies, so many dissimulations by our opposition. And what Rise Up wants to do, and what we have done in the past and will continue to do, is shine the laser beam of truth into this fog. And there should be no confusion, because the bottom line is that we are fighting for women's lives, women's reality, women's freedom, and women's humanity. And make no mistake about this, please, that we are in a war with a theocratic, regressive, repressive, puritanical, patriarchal opposition. Rise Up knew this. We knew this. We saw this on January 22nd of last year, when we stood at the Supreme Court and said this decision is coming down. Oh, we were called quixotic, you know? We are just fighting at windmills. But we weren't. We were prophetic. We were prophetic. We knew it when we heard the pill pitched as the white knight saving legal abortion. So they'll take this away, they'll take that away, but we have the pills will save us. But they didn't, and we knew they wouldn't. We knew they wouldn't, and we were viciously attacked for saying the truth about that. And we knew it because we never underestimated our enemy. Okay, and that is a terrible era of the pro-choice movement. You do not underestimate your enemy. You believe what they say when they talk about wanting a national ban And when they talk about wanting to make the fetus a constitutional person from the moment of conception, an American citizen. So our opposition says that there are millions of casualties on their side, the unformed and the unborn. And they talk about, do they feel pain? When do they feel pain? Is it 16 weeks? Is it 20 weeks? Is it 24 weeks when the cerebellum is connected to, a different part of the anatomy? But for me, and I believe for us, this is not the issue. The issue is that women feel pain. Women and girls are feeling pain. People are feeling pain, being forced into unplanned and unwanted pregnancies. Then there's the discussion of the fetal heartbeat. Now Texas pushed it down to 6 weeks because that is determined when the fetus has a heartbeat. I know that I have a heartbeat, and every living woman who makes the decision of abortion within the profound circumstances of her own life has a heartbeat. This latest decision, and I won't even call it a decision because a decision sort of means thoughtfulness and critical thinking. I would call it a diktat. This diktat, latest one, for us and for me is the most egregious intervention and engagement in medical care. And it's a reminder to all of us that no state is protective enough for abortion access. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no safe place for women and girls in this country. There is no safe place for women and girls. We are now officially second-class citizens. And when I speak, I say my name is Merle Hoffman, and I identify as a second-class citizen because that is what I am. So this is a hot war now, and I see the casualties every day at Choices. Women flying in from Texas, from all different parts of the country, having to struggle to get the money from the feminist funders, being scared, frightened, terrified, basically. And understand that this is a war of survival. For without access to legal and safe abortion, women will die. They will seek out dangerous care. They will self-abort. Their dreams will die. And freedom will be buried in every part of this country, every part of this country. I have been living, because of my work at the clinic for now, it'll be 52 years, 52, 71, yeah, before Roe, of course. I've been living in this state of total war before Roe was overturned. I have been on the front lines dealing with bombs, lawsuits, threats, harassment, the murder of colleagues like George Tiller. And when you live in a reality like mine, there's no time for filters or ideology. There is only the pure understanding of the necessity to continue the fight, to continue the fight. And what do we have? What do we have? We don't have, like our opposition, God above us who will redeem us for being a warrior for the unborn, for being a warrior for those who can't speak. Our banner is not white and pure as those are, but our banner is from our hearts because we speak the truth. Sophie Scholl, who was an extraordinary example for me and was a resistor of the Nazis in the 40s, and lost her head. She was a student at 20, and she and 4 others created leaflets that said Hitler was a lie. Everything was a lie. Germany was being led down the path to utter destruction. They caught them and they decapitated them by the guillotine at 21 years old. Now, I don't want to lose my head, but if I have to, I will. And I think it's critical that I talk all the time about practicing courage. And one of the remarks that she made is, you must stand up for the truth, for what you believe in, even if you are the only one standing. So I want to end by saying I absolutely refuse. I refuse to accept a society where women will be prosecuted for homicide, for a miscarriage, or denied emergency medical care, which will happen because of this, okay? Denied emergency medical care. I refuse to accept a society where women will be prosecuted for homicide, for miscarriages. I refuse to not resist this. I refuse to not dissent. I refuse to not resist, and I refuse to not struggle for this. And I urge all of you to refuse on any level you can. So no confusion. Let them talk about their lawsuits and let them fight from state to state. We are laser pure focused on what we want, which is legal abortion nationwide. And we refuse to allow the state to control our reproductive lives. The power of the state must stop at our skin. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Merle. As always, I have chills. I want to get into this more from another perspective, another co-initiator who I hope she's with us, Sunsara Taylor. I want to welcome her to share more about what is this ruling, what is its significance, what can we do, and what must we do? So Sunsara Taylor, co-initiator of Rise Up for Abortion Rights and co-host of the Revolution Nothing Less show. Glad to have you with us.
Really good to be with all of you. I want to thank people for tuning in tonight to this emergency webinar to respond to this really atrocious fascist ruling and assault on women's fundamental right to abortion. I want to start by saluting everybody who went out into the streets last Friday night as soon as they heard about this ruling on Saturday and over the weekend. The news footage that Chantelle shared at the beginning was so essential because we are not living in normal times. There is a fascist juggernaut, an outright war against women and their fundamental right to abortion, their right to decide for themselves when and whether they will have a child. And let's be clear, forcing women to have a child against their will is a form of enslavement. That's what we are facing. And that's what took a huge leap last year when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade and took away the constitutional right to abortion. And it went to new extremes last Friday when this fascist Trump-appointed judge down in Texas ordered the FDA to withdraw its approval of Mifepristone, one of the most common and safest drugs in the country, actually a drug that's used in over half the abortions in this country, safer than Tylenol, safer than Viagra. And if this ruling stands, it will affect abortion access everywhere, even in states where abortion is still legally protected. So this is an emergency we are facing. And it was never a winning strategy. It was always a losing strategy to rely on the courts and to rely on the Democratic Party and politics as usual in the face of what has been now a mounting attack on abortion rights and on women's lives for decades. It has always been a losing strategy, but it is beyond that now. We are not in normal times. As Chantelle read in the call for the actions that we're calling for, Rise Up for Abortion Rights is calling for this Friday and Saturday, Biden's response to this illegitimate fascist ruling was to call on people. Well, first he said, I'll fight this in the courts. And as we point out in our call to action, the courts, the higher you get up, the more they are packed with fascist theocratic judges, including the Supreme Court. So any reliance on these courts is an illusion. Biden also said the only way to protect abortion rights is to elect a Congress that will codify them. And as we said in our call as well, the Democrats had over 50 years to codify abortion rights. They never did it, not when they had a majority in the Congress and the presidency at the same time. But again, we're not in normal times. And we are looking at a situation where the fascist theocratic movement that has captured the Republican Party, that has captured the Supreme Court, is not preparing its base to respect elections they lose. This is the party that staged a coup on January 6, 2021. This is the party that responded to Trump's arrest last week by, Tucker Carlson called on his viewers, now is not the time to give up your AR-15s. This is a party that last week expelled 2 Democratic state representatives in Tennessee illegitimately, Black representatives, simply because the fascist Republicans had a supermajority and they didn't like the content of what those representatives were saying. This country is more divided than it has been at any time since the lead up to the Civil War. And there is one section of the ruling class that has completely abandoned the norms, the rule of law, that is at one and the same time trying to capture the courts and turn them into instruments of theocratic fascist atrocity. And on the other hand, is preparing for civil war to upend and work their way around any election that they might lose that is meaningful. So we have to recognize this is a time that we have to rely on ourselves. We always needed to, but we need to now more than ever. And what I think this moment shows, when half the rulers are theocratic fascist women haters, like this judge who resurrected the Comstock Act from 1873, an act that was used to go after Margaret Sanger for distributing information about birth control, an act that was used to suppress Walt Whitman's poetry, an act that is so dark ages and Victorian and puritanical and women hating that it belongs in the dustbin of history but has been resurrected. You have half of the rulers who are theocratic fascists and other kinds of fascists, and you have the other half who are unwilling and incapable of standing up to them and fighting for the interests of the people. And so most of all, I think this shows the illegitimacy of this system itself, and it shows its weakness and the opportunity and the need that we have to dare to dream and to fight for a whole different society and world, to bring this system down, to make a revolution and bring into being a society where the fundamental rights of women, the rights of LGBTQ people, the rights of Black people and immigrants, the protection for the planet is built into the economy, to the society, the rules, the functioning. I think this is a time to lift our sights and our daring. But it is also a time for people to get out in the streets from many different perspectives and refuse to be bystanders as history and the future is being determined. There is a tremendous amount at play right now, and this fascist juggernaut on women's fundamental right to abortion is accelerating, but it is not yet determined how this will play out. There are dueling court decisions from the federal level. There's a judge in Washington state who issued a ruling that directly contradicts the ruling that came out of Texas that is telling the FDA to keep providing Mifepristone as it has. It would only apply to 18 jurisdictions, not the whole country. But the fact that there are dueling rulings itself is a reflection of how deeply divided this country is. But it's also something that's telling us that we acting in this moment and mobilizing the people to stand up can impact what the institutions feel compelled to do, what the courts feel compelled to do, what the rulers of different stripes feel compelled to do. We are not passive in this, or we should not be. And if we are, it will be to the peril of women and their and girls in the future generations. So first and foremost, I want to salute, as I said, the people who got out in the streets, and call on all of you watching to find the ways to take action this Friday, this Saturday, to disrupt business as usual, to reach out to students and young people and tell them this is your future on the line. Stage a die-in, do a walkout, spread the word, wake up your peers to what is going on right now. If you're going to work, take your lunch hour, do something disruptive in the public square, spread the word, and aim this towards the masses of people who need to become actors on the stage, shaping the future. We saw the courage of the women of Iran standing up and how that shook that whole society and inspired the world. We wear the green bandana because of the women of Latin America who stood up in the thousands and then the millions fighting to decriminalize abortion rights, and they won that. It is through struggle in the streets, in the public square, in the realm of public opinion, saying legal abortion on demand and without apology, forced motherhood is female enslavement. We refuse to go back, and we will not let you determine the future. It is through putting something on the line that we won the right to abortion in the first place and we can win it back now. It is only in that way, and the future is being determined right now. So that's the first major thing I want to drive home, the salute and the call for further action with Rise Up for Abortion Rights. There are two further things I want to speak to briefly. One is that people continually ask and are confused. Why is this happening? What is going on? Why are they taking away these? Don't they know it'll hurt women? Don't they know women will die? If they care about life, why are they doing this? And this is why Rise Up for Abortion Rights has always been very firm in saying this is a war on women. And we've been attacked for saying that. We've been accused of being transphobic for saying that, for using the word woman. But I want to talk about why this is a war on women. And I was reading the New York Times letters to the editor this morning, responding to the Mifepristone ruling. And I wanted to read a paragraph which I think captures a great deal of what's at stake and why there is this concerted assault on abortion rights. This woman wrote, 12 years ago, I took Mifepristone for a medication abortion. You know what the side effects were? A law school education, a career I am proud of, financial independence, ultimately two precious children welcomed into a ready, loving, solo parent family of my design. And I think this captures something very significant, this one woman's story, but it's also indicative of major changes that have happened in the last 50 years since abortion rights was won in 1973. The women have entered public life in a way that was unheard of in history. And this is owing to the struggle of women for their liberation, for their equality, ferocious struggle and daring. And it's also owing to very profound changes in the US economy. Much less employment in manufacturing, much more employment at the high end of the professions in finance and tech, real estate and insurance, things that women are able to enter into more and more on equal footing with men. Women now graduate at a higher level from college than men do. And the other big sector of the economy, the biggest sector of the economy is service, which women also are brought into in much greater numbers, including at the very low ends. This has not ended patriarchy. This has not ended the domination of women, but it has given women, just like this letter writer says, a bit more financial independence, a bit more independence overall. And it's enabled women to enter into families on a more equal footing of their own design, and not to be trapped in abuse, not to be trapped subordinate to men, not to be trapped economically, physically, and socially at the same rate and in the same ways. And it is actually these changes that these Christian fascist dark ages movement are out to reverse. And that is why they're coming for abortion. That is why they're coming for the abortion pill. That is why they're coming for birth control next. And that is why we call it a war on women. And there is also a war on trans people, and that has to be named for what it is and fought as well. And they're very linked, but they're not the same. And it is disarming and disorienting to treat the assault on abortion as if it's some genderless assault on bodily autonomy and in the abstract. It is a war to enslave women, and it needs to be named. And the fury of women and of young girls and women needs to be unleashed to fight against this. And everybody who cares about justice needs to stand with this fight. The final thing I wanted to speak to briefly, and Merle touched on it, but I think it's very important as we prepare ourselves for what will be an intensifying fight, as we get out there and continue to stand up and call others into the struggle, is that Rise Up for Abortion Rights has been viciously attacked by opportunists and hustlers in the so-called movement who had nothing to say about standing up against the attack on abortion rights in the first place, who didn't mobilize opposition. But then when we did, and we got out there with tens of thousands of people protesting, walking out of school, leading up to the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and then in the wake of it, trying to reverse that through the power of the people, they launched attacks on Rise Up. As I said before, they called us transphobic for talking about women, which is a lie. They called me part of a cult. They attacked the leader that I followed, the revolutionary leader, Bob Avakian, who's a critical thinker, who's innovated a new communism, a new framework for human emancipation. They called him a cult leader, attacked his person. He's incredibly principled. People should learn about what he has to say. But these words, cult, transphobic, they're like a get out of thought free card. They're meant to scare you away. And they're a cheap trick to attack a movement that actually needs to come back with even more force right now to wake up millions and millions of people in massive struggle. And we need to unite with people from many different perspectives. And if we have differences, we need to debate them. But unprincipled attacks on Rise Up, they came in the past, and I'm putting them on the table now because as we step out there again, we will be hit with them, because there are people who are more wed to their place and their funding and their credit in a movement as abortion rights dry up and women's lives are foreclosed. They're more wed to their position than they are to the struggle that is needed and the sacrifice that's needed to get out there and fight to reverse this direction. And we have taken that responsibility. Merle spoke to it very powerfully. The time for courage, the time for daring, the willingness to stand up and do what's right, even when you're alone at first. And we need to continue to do that. And we need to call many more forward. And we need to not be deterred by opportunist, unprincipled attacks. And in fact, go out even more broadly to those who are serious, because there is a fight of our lives and of the future of women and girls is on the table. And it's bound up with a fight for the future, much more overall. So I want to prepare everybody for that frontally. And I want to conclude by saying, as all of us have echoed, legal abortion on demand and without apology, nationwide and everywhere. Forced motherhood is female enslavement, and we need to come together from diverse perspectives now to rise up for abortion rights, to get into the streets, to wake others up, and to mobilize the one force that can turn the tide, which is the masses of people who care about justice and women.
Good, very good, very good.
Thank you so much, Sunsara. I want to now talk about how we're going to do that and how we're going to take this forward and bring many, many more people into this fight and sound the alarm on this escalation, on this emergency situation. To do that, I want to welcome Chantelle, national organizer with Rise Up for Abortion Rights, back on to talk to us about how we can get organized. There's a lot of great questions coming in. Keep them coming in.
Yes. Hello again, everyone. I'll be answering some of the questions in the chat after I do my little spiel here on how everyone can get organized in your city, even folks who have never organized before or who are worried that maybe just 1 or 5 people might be showing up. So I'll get into some of those questions soon. But in line with what our call to act and our statement says, that we need to first be acting in our hundreds, then thousands, and ultimately, the millions needed to actually shake all of society. Imagine like you see the women in Iran, students walking out of school, demanding to be treated as human beings, women be treated as human beings. In the streets, men side by side, they're burning their hijabs, they're being disruptive, they're not allowing this patriarchal degradation to continue. And they are sacrificing, they are putting themselves out there. And so this kind of spirit needs to be awoken in this country. And again, which is why we take inspiration from our sisters in Latin America and raise this green bandana, because we are not accepting a world where abortion access keeps shrinking and ways to access abortion keeps getting smaller and smaller, and it gets criminalized, and women are scared and they're being sent home to bleed out, and doctors are scared to give care, and young girls forced to have the child of their rapists, and all this terror and horror. No, all that needs to be resisted, and all of us. So again, the power of the people, we must rely on ourselves to get out there. So these actions this weekend need to be aimed at waking up all these millions of people that ultimately that are agonizing, that are terrified, and need to be called on to act with us, because this fight is intensifying. And this weekend is not the last weekend we're acting. We need to grow, and we need to, again, be waking up society in these types of ways. So I wanted to say, that our demands need to ring out very clearly at these actions. Friday, during the day, like Sunsara was saying, and like our statement says, these need to be disruptive. I'm going to share my screen so that you guys will be looking at what I'm looking at. So Rise Up for Abortion Rights has a few tools for people here. If you're not familiar with our link tree, you can find it again in the link in all our bios. I also can send it to organizers if you don't have access to that. If you ever print a flyer, there's a QR code on our flyers and statements. Those QR codes take people to this link tree. It's an organizing hub for ways for organizers to act and to sign new people up as well. But I wanted to show you this link tree to click on organizing kit. And then here is our little organizing kit here. So we have some examples of disruptive actions if people are curious how to act. And right here under how, protest in ways big and small. And we have tons of links here to show examples of different kinds of actions, die-ins, making announcements at busy eating areas, raising the green bandana in creative ways, banner drops, Handmaid's Tale actions, art installations, sit-ins, lots and lots of ways. And then on the aim of this is to, disrupt people and challenge them, invite them to come be a part of the Rise Up for Abortion Rights protests on Saturday. Go out, meet people, print the flyer, which isn't made yet, but it will be on our website soon. The flyer will have our call to act and ways for people to sign up and get organized. So here's our website, which is also in the link tree. Our latest call to act is on it. Then at the bottom, there'll be a third button here that says print posters, print flyers, materials for you to organize your protests. Those will be up soon. The importance of getting out there in a bold way actually kind of sounds the alarm and shows people that this is a moment to actually be disturbing the air, be not accepting as these fascists escalate their attacks on women. And then Saturday, we did hear that there's Women's March actions being planned across the country as well. So if you want to host a feeder march or a Rise Up for Abortion, Green for Abortion contingent, the most important thing at one of these protests is to make sure our slogans and demands are seen as clearly as possible, saturating the crowds with our stickers, raising the green bandana at these actions. And same goes if you're hosting your own protests. These will be, will notify the press. That's what I'm trying to say. So again, like, while this is in the headlines, while people are turning their heads, while they're concerned, while they're being alerted to what is going on, what needs to ring out is hands-off medication abortion, legal abortion on demand and without apology nationwide. Forced motherhood is female enslavement, and Rise Up for Abortion Rights. Those slogans need to be visible, need to be chanted. I also, at protests, we have some chant ideas, which actually was major this past weekend, that some of these were already being thought up, and we're always open to taking more chants. So if you're creative, send them our way. But abortion pill must not be banned. Take to the streets. This cannot stand. Abortion on demand and without apology. Red state, blue state, you can't hide. The war on abortion is nationwide. Yeah. These are just some of the particular chants around this current situation and along with Rise Up for Abortion Rights, not the church, not the state, these that actually talk about what's going on versus, we all love them, but my body, my choice, and abortion is healthcare. Those are great, but those aren't gonna actually lead people to confront what's going on and how to act and what to do about it. So that's why we suggest these chants. Again, they're on our organizing kit. And you can host an action on our website. Right now, there's only a few on the map, and I see people already asking questions about, should I post mine? I don't see an action in my city. Email me at chantelleriseuppforabortionrights.org. And if you have questions about hosting, if you have questions about using the Action Network website. So I see we have a few on the map already. And I don't think I'm missing anything else, but again, it'll be important to get your actions up as soon as possible. And you can DM me, text me, whatever, if you have any questions on what to do this weekend. All right, that's it. Oh, wait, is someone
Can you
gonna
stop
tell
your
us?
screen share?
Oh, that's what the problem is. Got it.
Thank you. And it looks like people were already getting started looking at the organizer's kit and headed to the website. And Chantelle, I can't remember, did you point out where, because people were asking about where to get bandanas?
Oh yeah, that was my next screen share that I had in my tab.
It's on the website, right?
It's on the website. It's in the link tree. It's called on the link tree. It's in our website. It says shop #green4abortion. So you can get stickers, bandanas, and if you're an organizer, make sure to email me to get special code for organizers to get mass materials. So yeah, just let me know, and we'll work on getting shipments out first thing tomorrow.
Thank you, Chantelle. People are sending in really great questions. It looks like people are starting to post and share where their actions are going to be. This is awesome. Keep it coming. I also want to keep it going. So I am going to hand it over to Patricia. Patricia Wallin is an organizer in Chicago and a national organizer with Rise Up for Abortion Rights. And she shared this story at a protest this weekend. She's shared this story with me a few times. I've heard it. It's really important and powerful. And she's going to share a personal testimony now about the impact of such bans. So welcome, Patricia. Glad to have you with us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Patricia Wallin, and I'm a member of Rise Up for Abortion Rights in Chicago. And yes, I just wanted to share something with you today. Well, I heard the news too about this federal judge working towards banning the use of a pill that helps women have safe abortions. And as I read the news on my Instagram, I just wanted to share this with you, that all I could think was, like Chantelle was saying, the why, you know, all I could think was about my friend Lily, because Lily was my neighbor when I was growing up, and I lived in the country where I was born, El Salvador, where abortion and the abortion pill are banned and they're illegal. But we were both 15, and she was, to me, she was the one friend that had a dog. And she was just the kindest and most happy 15-year-old girl. She had a boyfriend, and he was also 15, and she got pregnant, my friend. So my friend Lily, in her desperation to not want to be pregnant and be a mother at 15, she killed herself. She ate rat poison. And it's like, I just cannot imagine. You know, my friend must have been feeling like so terrified, because abortion and the abortion pill, the same pill, Mifepristone, is already illegal in El Salvador. And if you go to a hospital in need of help and they suspect it's related to abortion, the same hospital is gonna call the police to come get you, because if even a doctor helps you, they go to prison too. So they've made it a punishment for women, because even if you're suffering for miscarriage, they can still not believe you and charge you with the crime of abortion. See, they don't realize how these laws are going to affect women in like the million different cases that could come up. And to be honest, like, thinking back, like, I know that if I had been in her position at that age, I would have been terrified too. And as I was reading all these news that are happening in the US, it's like, all I could think about was that when I heard that this judge wants to forbid the use of the abortion pill that we, had, was that my friend Lily's life could have been saved if only she would have had access to that pill. If she would have had access to that pill, she would still be alive. And if only there would have been someone in her life to tell her not to worry, that there's still something that she can do to end that pregnancy safely, that her life did not have to be over, and that she could safely abort and not be pregnant if she didn't want, and she could get on with her life. Seriously, like, all I could think was that Lily would still be alive and probably raising her children, and with 2 new dogs. And I wish that I could say that this is a tragic reminder of the harsh realities faced by women and girls in countries with restrictive abortion laws like El Salvador. But really, sadly, this is just the reality that we are now being forced towards in the US too. We're being cornered, and this new assault on women's freedom and rights is just leaving us without safe ways to end pregnancies that we do not want. And this is not the way that women in Latin America want to live. They don't want to live like this. So they're fighting without stopping by protesting. They are protesting to this day on the streets and in any way they can, wearing their green bandanas until they can pressure the government so much that they will not have any other choice but to make laws that protect women and girls. And women in Latin America, they're uniting. Despite their many different opinions on so many different issues, they're uniting to fight together. Because there can't be issues and opinions to freely discuss if half the population can't even have a say in what happens with their bodies and in their own life. But women in Latin America are not staying passive, and they're not staying silent, because this is not the reality that they want to live in. And I think that neither should we. We shouldn't accept it either. So this is why we need to unite, and we need to act now, because we cannot let these assaults keep growing. These shouldn't be happening. And so I ask you to please not stay silent, to make your opinion be heard. And I'm also asking you to help this movement with your donations as well, because we need everyone's help. When you help with donations, you're helping us, helping everyone to spread, to sound the alarm. And we need to spread this message, and we need to reach out to others, and we need to grow, because together is how we can do this. Because we have seen our sisters in Latin America struggle for the same reasons that we're struggling right now, and they have won. If you go to our website, there are many ways that you can collaborate with your donations, and you know that anything helps. We must do everything in our power to protect women's freedom. So let's honor my friend's memory by continuing the fight for reproductive justice and ensuring that no woman or girl has to suffer the same fate. And, it's like Rise Up for Abortion Rights. We're committed to winning legal abortion on demand and without apology nationwide. Because if we do it, we're sending this message to everyone, not just here in the US, but to everyone in the world. Because we know when one woman is not free, then none of us are free. And we've been saying this forever. And I'm just gonna finish with your donations go towards that mission. So thank you so much.
I see people in the boxes clapping and crying, and I know if you're at home, you're probably doing both. I want to send all our love to Patricia, and I just thank you so much for sharing your story. You likely weren't able to see it, but people are incredibly moved, both by the story that you shared and your ability to share it. Not everyone's able to do that, so I just really want to thank you and express your appreciation. And these are the kind, one of the people wrote, I just want to read it. The story of your friend is the kind of story everyone needs to hear. The stories of abortions are important, but the tragic endings and impacts of pregnancies are just as important, if not more so. They reflect the consequences of forced pregnancies. Too many people have cognitive dissonance regarding the trauma of forced pregnancy, birth, and motherhood. So I thought that was spot on. And I encourage folks to go to riseup4abortionrights.org. That's the website. It's a 4 like the number. And you can give, you can find actions, and you can join this fight. So I was looking, and you guys have some really thoughtful questions, and we have time to get into them. So let's do it. I wanted to start with a question about questions focused on the pill itself. We had one of our audience members write, "What's your position on the group We Testify who state, quote, the reality is that this decision doesn't stop people from having abortions with Mifepristone. We will still have them and source Mifepristone in our communities. People have been self-managing their abortions for thousands of years. People take abortion pills on their own and with support around the world. This is what we have been doing to care for one another, and we will not stop," end quote. They told me that their reasoning is that women need to be informed, so they don't feel like there is no way out if Mifepristone leaves the shelves. And I was wondering, maybe Merle would want to chime in first on how we should understand this.
Well, you see, this is a 2-pill regime, and it's the Mifepristone and the Misoprostol. And Misoprostol by itself has been used to end pregnancies for quite a long time, and it's been used by doctors. It's been used in this country. And when Danko discovered or developed Mifepristone and then saw that this in fact raised the efficacy, in other words, with Misoprostol, it's about 85 to 95%, 96%. With Mifepristol, with the 2 pills, you have a much higher rate of positive result. Okay. Now, when you just deal with the Misoprostol, that is a very different situation. There's a lot more bleeding. There's a lot more cramping. There's a lot more possibility of the need for a surgical abortion as a backup, which really puts a lot of women in dire circumstances if they're not in a place geographically that is available to either do a sonogram or help them in terms of getting them a surgical abortion. You know, I debated with Carol Downer. I've had these conversations for many years, and it's like, that's okay. We can do it ourselves. We should do it. Well, why should we do it ourselves? Why should we have to go to less than the standard or the best type of medical care that we can get? And there will be a lot of issues also with women who don't have safe spaces to take this medication, Mifepristone. And if they have to take 2 or 3 pills, which sometimes they do, they have to come back, they have to be compliant. I mean, at Choices, we've actually done the protocols to get ready. If this decision came down and they said, okay, no Mifepristone, now we have to go to Mifepristone. And there is a lot more of education we have to do with patients. And there are going to be women that are going to be unable to follow those protocols. They'll be in difficult relationships. They'll be in prison, perhaps. They'll be with a situation where they don't have a safe space. So, I mean, this reminds me so much, Sam, of when we were attacked for and I was attacked years ago when I wanted to use the hanger and used my 6-foot hanger, because we shouldn't really upset anybody. I mean, women are going to get frightened that, God, if we don't have legal abortion, we might have to use that. Well, we have used it, and we will probably have to use that again if this keeps going, these bans and this lack of access and other household objects. So I think we have to face reality. I think this need to not be uncomfortable or just make sure that women don't get frightened. We have to face the reality that legal abortion is one of the safest, if not the safest, outpatient procedure. And yet, if it's not legal, sterile, safe, etc., it will kill you. It can kill you or really, really be a major medical problem. And, we've done at Choices over 1 million abortions, okay, since 1971. And it's, it's so safe and it's so extraordinary that we can, in each of these instances, give women their life back again. See, and this takes it away with these bans. So that's my feeling and thinking. It's my thinking about this issue, that you can't once again say, oh, don't worry about it. Yes, we will take care of each other. There's not everybody to take care of everybody else. There's not enough pills in the world. There's not enough money in the world to give everybody plane fare to subsidize their oppression to fly to a quote unquote safe state. And that won't be it. There is no to get an abortion. So that's
Sunsara, did you want to add anything to that question? I did want to make one clarification that there are the states that are stockpiling miso, but there's also people who are saying, well, we have Mifepristone now, it's still here. And I think that was what was being spoken to, was people saying, we have it, it's here.
Right, yeah,
that. So I don't know, Sunsara. It's still, your answer still applies. I just wanted to put that out there.
The Supreme Court came down with adoptions, but we still have the pill, right? Wasn't there somebody that, I think Sunsara said this, that we're standing outside of the Supreme Court? Oh, we have the pill. Well, maybe we don't. Maybe we don't. So, there you go.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, the day that the Dobbs case was heard in December 2021, there was protests outside. And instead of saying, don't you dare overturn abortion rights, there were people literally saying, you may have the courts, you may overturn Roe, but we always have the abortion pill. And we put this on the Revolution Nothing Less show. We showed the footage, the asinine, idiotic, capitulationist logic. And I have to call it that, because when there was a chance to fight to stop the state from ripping away this right, as Merle said, all women in this country are now second-class citizens. 14 states have banned abortion. Many more are taking it away. An average of at least 5,000 women per month have had births that wouldn't have if they had had access to abortion. There's a, the statistics have come out. Women who have had to drop out of school, who have had to move into their boyfriend's parents' home, who've been trapped in abuse, who have had to, just be driven into poverty, who have lost their children, women who have faced all kinds of dire consequences, and even women with more privilege, with more, with wanted pregnancies, who have miscarriages where they nearly lose their lives because the doctors are afraid they will be arrested if they give them miscarriage management. This is already the situation. So while we had a chance to fight for legal abortion, people were saying, don't worry, we'll always have the pill. Smug, idiotic, and actually aiding the fascist assault. I have to say it because it disarmed people. And this is how I feel about this statement from We Testify, saying women have always helped each other get abortions. Yes, it's true. Women have self-managed abortions for thousands of years, mostly with very primitive methods that weren't that safe, but then increasingly so. But women in the last 100 years, 150 years, have been criminalized for this. And they've been sent to jail for it. And they have been driven to suicide for it. They have lost their lives in back alleys. To say we've always managed our own abortions is like looking at the Great Depression and saying, well, there were some people who got work during it. Yeah, that's true. Or you look at Fallujah when the US wrapped the entire Iraqi city in barbed wire and bombed everything living and said, well, some people lived through it. That's true. But there's a war, there's an assault. And to look at the few who make it through is to obliterate and render yourself accepting of the fact that there is a state-sponsored violent assault on women's lives and rights and humanity. And there's a chance to fight it. And women should be scared. Actually, women should be scared. And men should be scared. And people of all genders who care about justice should be terrified about what's being done. They should be terrified, and they should use that to fuel their courage into the streets, to stand up, to raise our voices, to change the course of history, because we are not powerless. Here's the thing. They don't want people to feel powerless. They don't want women and others to feel powerless, that they have no choices. We do have the most important choice we have is to fight this, to stand up together and become a force that is changing what the rights are and what the future will be. And please understand me. I am all for women having access, and everybody, trans people, non-binary people who need abortions, having access in whatever ways they can, self-managed if they need to, traveling across state lines if they need to, getting help if they need to. I am the people who are helping women get abortions, the abortion providers, the clinics, the people volunteering to drive people, house people, all of this, that is tremendous work. It is saving people's lives day to day. But it is not a fight to reverse the tide. And we have to be clear, we need a fight to reverse the tide. That's what Rise Up for Abortion Rights is. And we're coming together to fight to change the direction. And I think that's really essential. Or else, you can always squint and say, well, some women will still get this, but you're telling a bigger lie. And the women in prison will never have it. And the women in detention will never have it. And the women without papers who can't get past the checkpoints down near the border will never have access. There are women who are left behind who are being erased in statements like that. And I think it's unconscionable.
I think that's really clarifying, Sunsara, what the stakes are and what's on the line, and the need for people to take a look at what actually is real and what is true, I think is essential. Merle, did you want to say something? I saw you starting to talk. You're muted.
It's not only the external access that we're talking about. I speak about the enemy has outposts in our head, right? Outposts in our consciousness, the stigma of having an abortion. It's really quite extraordinary if you think of the amount of people, of women that have had abortions just since 1973, millions, their friends, their partners, their lovers, their whole stories. This is a constituency, a major constituency that should be out fighting and speaking. I mean, I've always said when I speak, and I'll say now, I had an abortion. I made that personal moral decision and choice. And I'm not saying that you have to, go out and celebrate it, but it is something that you can stand by. It is a moral decision that you have the right to make. And that is what you first have to fight the enemy with the outposts in your head and in your consciousness. And sometimes it helps before you even do that to get outside in the streets. And that could help you do it very, I mean, we've seen that, haven't we? We've seen young 14, 15-year-old girls get up and speak. We've seen older women. I was so moved. One of our rallies came over with tears in her eyes and spoke to one of the young students and said, I'm so sorry we couldn't keep this for you. We couldn't keep, give that as a heritage. So there's just so much there that we have to work on, but that's individually, and then we move collectively.
So important. There was another question about Mifepristone that I thought was worth talking about as well. One of you wrote, this new ruling overturning Roe and the fascist ruling against Mifepristone, how does this affect women who have ectopic or abnormal pregnancies outside the uterus, which are dangerous, life-threatening, and have actually killed women? They went on to say that they know of an actual occurrence when this happened. While Roe was in effect, this woman died due to medical neglect, which was preventable when the doctors chose not to act because they wanted to wait and see.
Yeah, this is, puts physicians in a position, weaponizes them in a sense, and places them and makes them arms of the state. They become the actors for these misogynist, dangerous medical decisions. I mean, there are conversations, medical conversations, well, how close do we have to get before her life is in imminent danger? What does the word imminent mean? How do you deconstruct imminent to minutes, to hours? Now, I work with physicians. You have a patient, you have somebody there in trouble, in crisis. You do what you have to do because you're there to heal, right? To save her life, a life, okay? And yet they have to stop, and then they have to make these calculations. And that is so egregious. How dare this happen? May I tell one of my best stories you brought up about Comstock? If people know about Bill Baird, he's considered the father of the abortion rights movement. He got very, very active when a woman died in his arms because in a hospital corridor, actually, because she used a hanger to try and abort herself. And he became a tremendous activist. And in '67, he went out in Boston University and he was giving a speech about birth control, and he held up a diaphragm and some foam, and he was arrested. They put handcuffs on him and took him away. This is Comstock. This is under the Comstock. Took him away to jail. This is in '67. And he was the initiator of that first law that went eventually to the Supreme Court in Griswold and underscored Roe. Okay, so when we would speak, he would tell the story when he was in prison, and these guys would come up to him and say, hey, man, what are you in for? I'm in for assault. I'm in for, and he said, I'm in for holding up a diaphragm, and I always found that amusing. It is, in a sense, it's crazy. But this is what happened under Comstock. And really, you have to think this is what's come back. This is really what we're fighting. It's not only fascist. It's this moral panic in a sense. This is sin and lust.
It's the equivalent of the morality police, of Iran's morality police in this country.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's another part of this, you know, the sinfulness and the lust and the puritanical thing. It's got a lot of stuff mixed in. That's why I said, don't be confused. Go to the laser beam. What are we fighting? As Sarah and we've all spoken about. Just listen to Patricia. That's what we're fighting for. That's who we're fighting for. Very clear.
Thank you, Merle. Do you both have time for maybe 2 more questions? One more question? 2 more questions?
Yeah.
One question was, there were a couple of similarly worded questions. So I'm looking for the right one. This is something that, Sunsara, you've spoken to already a couple of times, but I want to share this question. Why is it an issue to use more inclusive language? Trans men and non-binary people are impacted too.
Yeah, I'll speak to that, and then if you want to add, you can. Look, trans men and non-binary people can also get pregnant and need abortions, and they absolutely should have the right to abortion on demand without apology. It's essential. And the rights and the lives of trans people need to be defended and fought for overall. And the really horrific genocidal attacks on trans people coming from the same Christian fascist forces who are coming after abortion, and who are proposing hundreds of laws to restrict the lives of trans youth in particular, and terrorize doctors, healthcare workers, families, and school teachers and administrators who are supportive of those youth. These need to be fought. But in fighting that, we have to talk about the attacks on trans people. We have to talk about trans lives. We have to talk about what people are attacking there, and not just erase that and say, well, they're general attacks on people's rights. No, you name the rights under attack. And similarly, when there is a war on women that is aimed at women, that is aimed at reversing the social advances that women have made, not ending a patriarchy, but some changes that are actually, that have called forth a misogynist, a woman-hating backlash that is motivated by the desire to resubordinate women even more openly to men, you also have to name that. It does a disservice to people to obscure what is the thrust of this attack on abortion rights. It does a disservice, and it disorients people, it confuses people, it doesn't make it more inclusive, it makes it more diffusive, because you do not arm people to understand what is really at stake. How many times have we been out there? How many times have we had, and myself, I've experienced this over and over again, and all of our organizers have, where people say, I don't understand why they're doing this. Why, if they care about life, would they do this? Why, if they care about children, would they do this? Why, if they care about my body, my choice when it comes to masks and vaccines, would they take away my body, my choice when it comes to abortion? Because people have been told repeatedly by the Democratic Party, and now by a lot of really misguided woke, sort of whatever's the latest mutation of wokeism these days, that you have to not talk about women, and abortion is just about health care, or it's just about bodily autonomy in the abstract. People are being disarmed and don't actually understand that this is an assault on women as women. And that needs to be named. That is what is driving this, and it needs to be fought as such. And I think that we, you don't build unity between different struggles and different movements by collapsing the particularity of each of them. You have to name it, you have to identify it. The real unity between the attacks on trans people and the attacks on women is, yes, in this Christian fascist theocratic program, and ultimately in the system of capitalism, imperialism that has this patriarchy woven into it. There is a common root to this, and there is common interest in fighting it, but we have to fight it, and we have to name it, and we have to help people understand what's at stake in each of these in their own right, if we're going to mobilize people to fight it, and not erase that and obscure that. There's vicious attacks, white supremacist attacks on voting rights. They're not, yes, they're attacks on voting overall, but they're targeted at Black people. We can't erase that when speaking about that. You have to actually name what is being gone at. And so that's why we do so. And in every statement we've put forward, we've included, very important, that we also have to take on the attacks on LGBTQ people, because we do. but we name women because this is going to enable people to understand what's at stake and fight it. And we've been viciously attacked for doing so, which is completely illegitimate. And it's a dishonest attack. We've never stopped people from using non-gendered language at our rallies. We've never criticized them or attacked them for it. But we do use the word women, and the attacks on us as transphobic are dishonest, and they've been used to drive people away from being in the streets and standing up. And they go along with the capitulationist logic of don't fight this, don't get people angry, don't get people too alarmed. You know, we'll keep finding a way to do a workaround. So these two things have been really bound up together. And that's, I think, the best answer I can give right now.
Really appreciate it, Sunsara. I do want to ask one last question as we close out, because I think it helps us go forward where we need to go, which is into the streets this Friday and Saturday. And this question is, what are Rise Up for Abortion Rights specific demands regarding this Mifepristone ruling? How do speakers recommend reaching out to, communicating with pro-choicers to fight in the streets, mainstream pro-choicers to fight in the streets and public squares, instead of following cable news politicos and talking heads who keep saying this is really going to hurt the Republicans in the ballot box in 2024?
Well, I would, Merle, are you muted? You look like you're speaking. Uh-oh, Merle, you're still muted. Merle, we need you to unmute yourself. There you go. There you go.
Am I on?
Yes, we can hear you now.
What are the demands? That's what we say, that it has to be nationwide, that Mifepristone, that it must be continued, that I would like to see doctors, you see, rise up against this. I would like to see different aspects of society. Why aren't they saying we cannot be physicians and be held by these kinds of handcuffs to decide how to treat our patients? I would like us to call on nurses, doctors. I saw something about almost 400 or 500 heads of drug companies, because they're really concerned that this can move and morph into all different areas. I mean, what's to stop another judge by saying, well, I don't like Ozempic, or, you know, diabetics shouldn't do such and such. I mean, this is a real power grab for a different establishment or structure of our society, which is hopefully scientific R&D that gets pills or medicines to the market that people need and people could use. So I would like to see that kind of outreach, definitely to the youth. I mean, I do firmly believe that if we press the point, Sam and Sunsara, that this is not just safe states and non-safe states, that New York, they're coming for you, or Massachusetts, they're coming for you, you know, because people are very self-interested. And as long as it's somebody else, it's okay. But, you know, maybe it's enough of a wake-up call if somebody is realizing that it's, you know, first they came for the communists and I didn't do anything. And then they came for me and there was nobody to help me. So, you know, that has to be brought up also. I don't know. I would just like to see very strong statements. I think wherever people are, I think it's wonderful. I think the organizer that Chantelle has done in terms of all of the kits, I would love to see a lot of action this coming weekend. That's what I would think. That would be my demands for every part of the society to finally rise up.
Yeah, I would just, I would kind of close out by echoing the urge for people to get out there. And I think the slogans are incredibly clarifying. They bring people a lot of understanding and resolve of what's at stake. Forced motherhood is female enslavement. That is true. And every time we've taken that out very broadly, we've heard stories that are very similar to Patricia's of her friend. These are very common stories in this world right now. And there are women who lost their lives, either by botched illegal abortions, unsafe abortions, or by suicide, as she described, or because they were trapped into lives they did not want. They did not choose in a patriarchal, male-dominated society and world. And so we have to tell the truth. Forced motherhood is female enslavement. It is every bit as horrific as that. And no one should accept it. And when women are not free, no one is free. And everybody has a responsibility to that. And the demand, legal abortion on demand and without apology, nationwide and everywhere. Legal, because the power of the state is profound. Anybody who pretends otherwise is selling make-believe, and it's harmful. Because when they take away a fundamental right, it's what causes the lives to be lost. It's what causes the shame that women have to live through. It's what causes doctors to go to prison or to stop providing the services, and then women to die. It's just a fact. When the state comes after your right, when Idaho says you can be arrested for trafficking, for helping a teenager cross state lines to get an abortion, a teenager is being forced by the state to have a child against their will. That is a form of enslavement, and you'll be arrested if you help them. Okay, this is what we're facing. So legal matters. Abortion on demand and without apology. That means accessible, without hurdles, without burden, without having to go deeply into debt, without having to sell your body to come up with the money to pay for it, without having to give up your job to get the time off of work to travel. On demand and without apology, without shame, without stigma. Somebody put in the chat, women should be able to engage in sex and enjoy it just like men. Absolutely. Being pregnant is not a good reason to have a child. You should have a child if you want to have a child. Having your birth control fail, getting caught up in the moment, having sex that's unplanned. Those are not good reasons for having a child. Neither is rape or sexual assault. You have a child if you're ready for one and you want one. Any other reason, you should be able to get an abortion on demand without apology, with no shame, no stigma, no shame and harassment from society, and none of that internal outposts of the enemy in your mind that Merle talked about that women carry.
I say legal abortion really increases the wantedness of
That's
your
right.
child. It increases the wantedness of your spouse. So, there should be legal abortion without borders. No borders.
Yes, that's what I was getting to next. Nationwide, as in
borders.
everywhere.
Then you go international,
everywhere.
work with.
Well, I'm getting there. Exactly. Legal abortion on demand and without apology, nationwide, not state by state, not in our little blue area, nationwide and everywhere, worldwide. What Patricia said, women all over the world, and what happens in this country affects
everybody.
Women and states do around the world. So this is a slogan that draws clear dividing lines that we have to fight for. And I think those two slogans are very profoundly important. If we had thousands, if we had millions out in the streets behind those, if we even had hundreds this weekend, that is going to impact. Let the rulers, let those in power, let the politicians, let the courts figure out how they're going to respond to us. Don't chase them around and beg them just for this little, please don't implement the ruling in just a few states. Of course they shouldn't, but make the demand for what you want and let them respond to the power of the people from below and shape and change the people. Merle also said, and I think this is important, when you get out there with others and you raise your voice, you express your fury, you find your courage, you act together, you change yourselves. And you change what other people think is possible and what they dare to do. And our audience, when we get out there this Friday, this Saturday, right now, as people are hearing this news, as it may be going into effect, the bans may be going into effect on Friday. We don't know. I mean, they're scheduled to, they could be stayed, but they're scheduled to right now. As this is breaking, people need to see fierce, uncompromising, furious, righteous, hopeful, and daring resistance with those slogans in the schools, in the public square, and do not underestimate how profoundly that can start to shape how millions more react, because we're going to need them as we go forward. And when we're doing this, we're acting on the people's psyche and their consciousness. And so you get out there, you plant this pole, you raise the green bandana. When you do it, Sign up everybody, get them to follow the Rise Up social media, get them to follow and sign up on the website, sign up their email, join the email list, get their phone numbers, connect with them, ask them to donate on the spot, have a bucket, let them donate, have them give $100, $20, 20 cents, whatever they can give for the green bandana, and spread these everywhere. These need to be being worn throughout society in a way. If thousands were wearing these green bandanas, then millions, which is what happened in Latin America, it makes you know you're part of a sea of people. You feel your strength. And the last thing I'll say, because it was part of the question about the Democrats. So I'm talking about what we need to do, but I want to speak very briefly on this thing. The Democrats trying to use this for their elections. The Democrats are running on abortion all over the country, even in places where the offices they're seeking have no power to affect abortion access. They are trying to use your fury to advance their position. They are not actually in position to change in a meaningful way, and they're not fighting in a meaningful way to establish legal abortion nationwide. If they were serious about that, they would call you into the streets until the body politic yielded, but that's not what they're doing. So don't get played, and be aware these fascists are not trying to respect elections. We're all told we're supposed to be so happy that there's a pro-choice judge in Wisconsin. And trust me, I'm better that there's a pro-choice judge in Wisconsin than a fascist. But they only have a majority till 2025, and already Republicans are talking about impeaching her. They're not playing by the normal rules. There's no way this is going to be settled without mass struggle and resistance and a fight. So you got to get out there. You got to join up. And as you do, recruit others.
And I would say just see this as a privilege. It is a great privilege to struggle and fight for this. And also for Lily, and I keep her in my mind always now. So yes, let's do it. Let's do it.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Merle. Thank you, Sunsara. Thank you, Chantelle. And thank all of you for tuning in, sticking with us, sharing your questions, your thoughts, your ideas into the streets with your green. Friday, April 14th and Saturday, April 15th. Go to the website. Let's call forward others for legal abortion on demand and without apology. Nationwide and everywhere.
Yes.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.